Welcome to Sat Chats Rehash, the Bitcoin podcast where we chatting about sats. We are going to go back over our episodes, help you understand what they were about, whether you want to go back and watch them yourself. We are going to talk to Chappie about the things we said that might not be right, some inaccuracies, some mistakes. And we're going to dive into some of the open conversational threads from those episodes. So I'm your host, Stuart, Bitcoin Maxi, who wears prescription sunglasses to protect you and your loved ones from my Bitcoin laser eyes.
And I'm your co-host, Chris, founder and CEO of Ithaca Hummus, Bitcoin smash buyer and proud multi-coiner.
So smash that like and subscribe the same way Chris smash buys Bitcoin. Once we reach 999 plus one subscribers, we will drop 1 million sats on top of a lucky subscriber
And
unlock a live show Friday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern.
let's go.
So today we've got 3 episodes for you. Number 13, Brock. Number 15, Jay. And number 16, Miles.
What happened to number 14?
Number 14, you guys don't know about number 14 yet.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yeah. We'll leave it there. Leave it
woo!
there.
Okay.
Yeah, we're working on something real special for 14. Okay. All right. So first up is Brock. And I love the way that you prepare for these rehashes, Stuart. By going into ChatGPT, uploading the full transcript. And then step one is, okay, Chappie, give me a 1-word description of the theme for Brock. Mm-hmm. And that was education. So what did Chappie mean by that?
So it actually plays into the 3 key takeaways here that I'll let you go through.
All right. So first up, we talked about Bitcoin as a long-term store of value and a medium of exchange. 2 of the components of money, right?
Right. Yeah. Brock could Brock was on board, I think, for Bitcoin as a store of value.
Yeah.
But like a lot of our guests, their next thought is, well, where can I use it? How can I use it for stuff?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then we chatted with Brock about the role of miners and Bitcoin's future sustainability.
Right. And what Chappie means by that is Brock's question about what happens to the miners when they have no more block reward.
That's
and
right.
And they flip to transaction fees only.
Yeah. So like, why would the miners continue to operate when they can no longer mine any more Bitcoin? What's their incentive to keep going?
Right.
Okay. Then we talked about some scaling solutions. How is Bitcoin going to become a medium of exchange if everything has to happen, if all the transactions have to happen on chain? That's not going to work. So Brock was curious about how that scales up.
Yeah. So Brock was a big thinker, because he wanted to know both like longitudinally and latitudinally, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he had some longitude and some latitude where it was like, well, what's the sustainability of Bitcoin as a store of value over time?
Yeah. When
the mining rewards dry up and you're on transaction fees only, what about this direction? Like, can I spend it in a number of different places? How would I spend it? The Lightning Network. And also even further than that was like, what happens to the economy if people aren't, spending little bits and bobs everywhere because they're saving.
Yeah.
So that theme of education was, okay, maybe I can understand Bitcoin as a thing. Maybe I can understand it as a store of value, but, help educate me on the long-term game and on, the different use cases for Bitcoin.
We love Brock.
Yeah.
So the third and final bucket that we will talk about, we asked Chappie, what kind of mistakes did we make? Where were we inaccurate?
Mm-hmm.
So here's what Chappie had to say. Miners will continue to be profitable even when they run out of the block reward, was what we said.
That's
right?
what we said.
That's what we said.
Because the transaction fees may not be a lot, but the value of those in fiat terms will be huge by that time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Chappie said transaction fees could increase in value as more people use Bitcoin, but whether this is sufficient to sustain mining long term is an open question.
And I think that's a fair point to make. I think it's okay to leave room for doubt or nuance, even though I'm a Bitcoin maxi and I know for a fact it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It is nice to put some color into that statement and say, look, technically, allegedly, you may have a scenario where the transaction fees aren't enough to sustain mining.
Yeah, and I like the way that she phrases it here by saying that it's an open question. It's not necessarily like a conundrum, right? Or like some unsolvable problem. It just hasn't been addressed yet because we've got over 100 years to figure that out as a Bitcoin community, and it's just
Yeah, and by the way, if mining is tough 100 years from now, then the people who are mining will simply ask for a higher fee. Like, okay, well, look, if I'm going to process this transaction for you, I need that dollar bill, sir, or that Bitcoin E, right?
Yeah.
So it's self-regulating in a number of ways. In a truly free market, I think people are just afraid of that
unknown.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
What happens? Well, the free market will provide the answer for that.
Yeah, just let it be balanced. Let it balance itself.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So episode 15 was J. The one word Chappie theme was trust. Okay.
Very interesting.
Let's unpack that quickly.
Well, Jay went on his journey where he started learning about Bitcoin by attempting to not trust it, right? Or by attempting to disprove it.
Yeah.
He came at Bitcoin, well, like, how can I figure out how this doesn't work?
Yeah.
And the more he searched for ways that it wouldn't work, the less he could find any.
Yes.
Yes. So he came to trust Bitcoin by starting off with like a purposeful distrust of it.
Yeah. Jay was one of those episodes where it actually happens often, but I always appreciate when we finish taping the feeling of like, wow, I just learned a lot, just by listening to Jay and hearing how he has gone through his Bitcoin journey, and it left me feeling even more confident in Bitcoin and the Bitcoin network. So
yeah, for me, when we have a guest on the show, I've never heard of the guy or girl before. I've never seen them anywhere. And that might be because I have no social media. But my point is, they aren't a big name in Bitcoin, but they come on and they have a level of conviction that you're like, it is validating.
Yes.
It's fellowship.
Yes.
Yes. It's like here is a regular person who has learned enough about Bitcoin to have the same level of conviction as some of these big names out there.
Yeah.
And you walk away like, dude, see, like, I'm not the only person who feels this way.
Yeah.
Because so many people we talk to are like, okay.
Yeah.
He's going to talk about Bitcoin again.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Oh, everything leads back to Bitcoin. I'm like, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
But it's just nice to have someone who's like, oh, yeah, 100%.
It's validating. It's validating to have another intelligent human being on the other side saying, like, I see what you see too. So, all right, the 3 key Chappie takeaways. All right. Number 1, Bitcoin is the best option for money.
Heard, chef.
Okay, got that. Bitcoin is both digital gold and digital cash, but not yet fully digital cash.
Come on, chaps.
It is fully digital cash. We're talking about adoption, right?
Yeah,
or usage.
Right. It is digital cash. It has always been digital cash. It always will be digital cash. And I think what Chappie's trying to say, even though we don't like her word choice, is that we are in a digital gold forward era of Bitcoin.
Yes.
And that use of Bitcoin as digital cash, is we're not there yet.
Well, either way, if you go back to episode 15, Jay, you're going to hear us unpack that in an even more,
through the lens of him bringing retail on board to accept Bitcoin. Yeah, really interesting.
Yep. Okay. And then the third, understanding Bitcoin requires comparing it to other monetary systems, which, we've all been exposed to that in our early on in our Bitcoin journeys when we read the Bitcoin Standard, because as we know, the first 7 chapters of that book, they don't even talk about, Saifedean doesn't even talk about Bitcoin.
Yeah. Is it like, what percentage of that book is it like? It's like the first 80%.
Yeah.
He just spends trying to help you get to a point where you can be ready for what he's going to say next.
Yes.
It's insane.
Yes.
It's insane.
Yeah, because how much before Bitcoin came along, how much did you know about monetary systems, historical, forms of money, and the rise and fall of civilizations, and the role that money played in that whole process?
It's crazy
for me. Not much.
No, I didn't know anything at all.
Nothing.
I just knew I didn't have enough of it, even though I was making more and more of it all the time.
Yes. So it takes time, but you do need a base level of knowledge about monetary systems and practices and tools, and before you can really start to understand Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has been engineered based on historical lessons that we've learned about what makes good money. So let's talk about the inaccuracies and mistakes in number 15, Jay's episode. According to Chappie, when we said the US dollar is backed by the world's largest superpower, Chappie says it's not formally backed in a tangible sense.
Stop there. Whoa, Chaps. Hot take. Dang, Chaps. Chaps is like, you know what it's backed by? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Its stability is largely due to the strength of the U.S. economy and geopolitical influence.
Dude, so I put this, I allowed Chappie's, piece of nuance in here because it's savage. It's savage.
Yeah, no, it's not really.
She's like, yes, it is, but only because, if America no like you, America hit you big stick. You know what I mean? Like you accept dollar or you get hit with big stick. There's like, because we talk about our US dollar being backed by our productivity and our future productivity, right? Where the dollar represents our hard work. And when they're printing money, they're saying, well, we're going to be good for it in the future. Chappie's not even letting us say that the US dollar is backed by American productivity. She's fully tying it to, well, I guess she's saying here the strength of the US economy. Yeah. But I guess the nuance is that geopolitical influence is we gonna hit you, okay? Yeah. This is money, and if you say it isn't, we're gonna hit you.
So
just an interesting little nuance there from Chappie.
All right, so next up, we've got now the inverse. Bitcoin is backed by the world's largest supercomputer. That's what we said. Here's what Chappie has to say. My first time reading it. Bitcoin is secured by a decentralized network of computers, miners and nodes, that maintain and verify transactions via cryptographic proof of work. While Bitcoin does represent one of the largest distributed computing networks in the world, it is not a supercomputer in the traditional sense.
Right. But it is a supercomputer.
Fair. I mean,
right? In the non-traditional sense.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
It's non-trad.
So I liked this distinction as well. Yeah. Because it's like, look, it's because when people think of a supercomputer, they think of a single computer that is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And we are describing this decentralized network of computers that represents one of the largest distributing computing networks in the world. And so is a supercomputer in the traditional sense. And one thing you don't see here is that Chappie pointed out this line, Bitcoin is backed by the world's largest supercomputer, while not literally true, is a very interesting analogy, metaphor type. Like it's a very interesting way to think about Bitcoin, right? To think about it as being powered by this 20,000 headed Hydra.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. She left some room for this idea to continue, cultivating in our conversations.
And I love how clean this description is.
Yeah, very nice.
Bitcoin is secured by a decentralized network of computers that maintain and verify transactions via cryptographic proof of work. Like, I struggle to help people understand that Bitcoin is a monetary system that we operate.
Yeah.
And right here, this maintenance and verification of transactions is beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
It's this community-driven, accountable, rigorously honest, decentralized program that no one leads or controls, but that everyone can participate. I mean, dude,
Yeah.
I could cry.
Yeah. It's great. It's great. All right, last one. There are 219 nation states in the world. Chappie says 195.
All good.
Okay, fine. All right. Next, we're going to talk about episode 16, which was Miles.
Dude.
God, I love Miles.
So, y'all, if you haven't watched Miles, do it. That is one of our most mind-blowing episodes that we've published.
Yeah, it gets you feeling all warm and fuzzy.
It gets you feeling like you need to get some Bitcoin.
Yeah, period. Okay, so the one word Chappie theme is, okay, I'm going to do this in a little French. Liberation.
Liberation.
Oh, so much better. Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's unpack, how do you say it again?
Libération.
Oh,
Égalité, fraternité, liberté. Which they don't have right now because Europe's taking all their unused savings. Ooh! Might have to rip a shorty on that. But freedom. Miles, he's one of the 3 guests we've had on the show who saw Bitcoin and got it the first time.
Yes.
Okay? And that gave him the financial freedom to stop working his job when he wanted to stop working his job. It gave him the freedom to go back to a passion of his, and it gave him full-on nation-state freedom. An Australian living in America who's leaving for Mexico, he's going wherever he wants.
Yeah.
He's going wherever he wants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, what a story. Because before Bitcoin, it just didn't seem like Miles was going to be able to work himself out of the system.
Yeah.
Like he was very talented,
Mm-hmm.
did some amazing things in his career.
Yep.
But, what was going to totally change his life into the life that he has today, if not for Bitcoin? I don't know.
Let's test your recall. What Australian phrase did Miles use to describe what you're describing? Okay. And everybody pause the video, put it in the comments without going back to his episode to see if you know it. Now unpause. What was that Australian turn of phrase that he used to talk about the concept of slaving away at his 9-to-5?
Was it something like I was just trying to get a loaf or something like that?
Close. It was bread centric.
Related. Yeah, crust.
Yeah. He was just trying to earn his crust.
Yes.
Which is a devastating turn because you're not even talking about the pillowy stuff in the center. You're just trying to get the dang crust on the outside of the bread, man. Can I just have a couple of crumbs?
Yeah.
Good memory. So Chris got it. Did you get it?
Wow, I'm shocked.
Yeah.
It literally came to me in like the final seconds.
Yeah.
I was feeling the pressure. Okay. So Chappie takeaways from episode 16, Miles. Number 1, Bitcoin as a path to financial freedom.
Heard, chef.
I mean, we kind of say that at the beginning of every episode. Instead of financial freedom, we say generational wealth. But
yeah,
we get that. Number 2, the flaws of the traditional TradFi.
Oh.
Traditional financial system. I mean,
TradFi, TradY. TradY. TradFi, TradY.
On and on and on and on. Hashtag TradFi. Okay. Then third and finally, Bitcoin as a tool for global economic empowerment.
Yeah.
Oh, that was maybe the best. That was maybe the best of that episode. That story about how he was paying his colleague somewhere in Africa and just having his Western Unions getting like nibbled away at by the trolls on the bridge until it got there, and it was like a fifth of what he was intending to send.
And it was actually and I don't think it was Africa. It was like India or Sri Lanka or Bangalore or something.
Yeah.
But that guy was the one that was having to pay all the fees.
Mm-hmm.
And Miles was like, dude, how come I'm the rich dude in the developed world? And for me to send you money, you have to eat a ton in fees before it even gets to you. So it wasn't even about Miles having to pay fees. It was about his less advantaged contractor in a less developed world having to watch his hard-earned value get eaten up just to get over to where he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Bitcoin solved that.
Boom.
Bitcoin solves that.
Absolutely preserved the value across the world.
Yeah.
You know, he could send the exact amount and his fellow could receive the exact amount.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and nobody could get in between.
Yes. Yes. So that's what we mean by Bitcoin as a tool for global economic empowerment. Because what exists today, it's like this uneven, like you can be in Sri Lanka and work for a company in the United States, but you can't earn like you are doing work for that company in the United States if you're not there physically, because you can't be paid the same way. And so anyway, let's talk about the mistakes that we made and some of the inaccuracies that Chappie is pointing out to us here. Number one, Satoshi Nakamoto went into hiding due to government threats. That's what we said.
Or Miles, one of us did.
Okay, someone on that episode.
But we were talking about how Miles spent time with Julian Assange.
Yes.
And sent Julian Bitcoin to prop him up during the WikiLeaks era.
Yes.
And then Satoshi pieced out. And you or me or Miles talked about, you know, hey, Satoshi had to dip out because of government threats. And Chappie's got a nice correction for us here.
Yeah, and I think Miles was also kind of giving us some context around what the world was like in the 2008 to 2010 time. You know, that's when Julian Assange and WikiLeaks were under fire and being prosecuted. And so people who are doing things at that point in time that could be, you know, considered against the grain of what the neocons and the, you know, the geopolitical system wanted, had to be very careful and still do.
Yeah.
So Chappie says there's no direct evidence that Satoshi left due to fear of the government. The last known post from Satoshi in 2010 simply stated they were moving on. And when Chappie says they, she's referring to Satoshi.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I like this distinction because it allows us to understand that Satoshi may not have gone into hiding at all. Satoshi may have no fear of government. Satoshi may simply have said, guys, I did it. See ya.
Yeah.
Here's Bitcoin.
Moving on.
I'm moving on.
Yeah.
Which is like, what? So I just like that this correction paints Satoshi in a non-fearful light.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Not afraid. He
just is like, I'm moving on, dude.
All right. Last inaccuracy mistake from Miles's episode. We said, or someone, maybe it was Miles. Maybe it was like, okay, Miles said that 42% of U.S. GDP goes to financial services.
And let's stop there for a second.
Okay.
Because he talked about how Bitcoin helps you realize that the United States economy is over-financialized. 40% of whatever is like financial services or banks or stockbrokers or just, you know, money transferring and just all that stuff.
So I guess it really depends on the definition of financial services, because I could think of a pretty narrow definition for financial services, and then I could think of a more broad definition for financial services. So what does Chappie mean when she says financial services, and what did Miles mean when he said it? I think that's maybe up for debate. But as Chappie defines financial services in the U.S., its share of the GDP is actually more like 7 to 8%, not the 42 that Miles had quoted us. And Miles, if you want to jump in the comment section and elaborate on what you meant, because we're sure that you're not.
Oh, we know Miles isn't wrong.
Yeah, it's just we need some elaboration on that. And
everything homie said was fact.
Yeah, for sure.
But she's saying here likely a misunderstanding of banking profits versus total GDP. For, I put this in here because, she flagged it. But, my point here is that whether it's 8%, whether it's 42%, whether you're looking at revenue or GDP or GNP or who knows what, the fiat currency demands all these scaffolds and supports and throughputs and tunnels, connectors. You just have to build a ton of things around it,
right,
to not only support it, but to try to make more of it with what you got, because it's going away as soon as you get it.
Yeah.
And Miles is saying Bitcoin is hard money. And when you have it, it's yours. And when you want to transact with it, you just shoot it to the person.
You don't need you don't need to pay somebody to tell you and advise you how to keep it.
Yeah. Can you imagine having a financial advisor and saying, okay, I've got Bitcoin. Let's talk about what I should do this year. Yeah, you should just hang on to it.
Yeah, done.
And then they send you a bill for their advice.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, no, we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
It's so simple that people want it to become complicated.
Right. Well, there's this societal pressure to feel like you're doing the responsible thing. And then there's this construct of what that actually looks like. And the hard part for people is like, well, what if that's actually not the way that it has to be? Like, what if there's this area that you can sidestep into over here that doesn't look anything like that? It's hard. It's hard.
It's really hard.
It's hard to get people to take that step.
It's so hard.
It's hard to do it yourself.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the end of episode 16, Miles. And now we're going to move into some threads that we left open.
Yeah.
In these episodes, which is an interesting area to wade into.
There's so much to talk about when it comes to Bitcoin. And often with our guests, they will have a question, but halfway through answering it, they've got a new question.
Yeah.
And sometimes with a Bitcoiner, their story is so rich that we're trying to dive into different aspects of it and extract it for our satillionaires. And we take the next leap before we're done with the first one because it's so interesting.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of conversational threads that were left open. And these were the ones that I pulled out that I felt were interesting to talk about more.
Okay. All right.
Because there's a lot of threads left open in every single episode. It's just the nature of Bitcoin.
There is. So open thread number 1, this came from our episode with Brock. Will second layer solutions like Lightning or future innovations make Bitcoin as easy as fiat for daily spending? Seems like a pretty easy answer.
What's the answer?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the answer. Conversational thread closed. Whoop.
Yeah.
Brock was trying to figure out whether Bitcoin could get to a point where he could spend it in all these different areas. And we started talking about Lightning. Lightning and other layer 2s that we're not even familiar with are going to help people get into Bitcoin easier. The free market will eventually take care of the problems that Bitcoin may or may not have today in terms of mass adoption for daily payments, right? And the key thing for people to remember is that it took time for the major corporations to build a payment network on top of fiat currency so that they could abstract us away from the tasks of having cash, holding cash,
Writing
using
checks.
cash, storing cash, all that stuff,
Yeah.
right, Jay, right? They just got it to the point where we have a little plastic card, we swipe it, eventually now we tap it, now it's on our phone, beep, you know. The point is, with Bitcoin, we are building our own money, okay? And so the next step is to build our own payment network.
Not
So,
hard, by
right?
the way, right? My favorite example that you've ever given us is it's such a great visual of the credit card machine that was like, ching, ching. You know, like, then what did we get? We got the swipe or type in your number little countertop thing. And now it's just like, boop, read the chip.
Yeah, you hit the chip for a little while. Then now you got the tap to pay.
Now it's the sensor. Yeah.
Now you don't even need the card. You just use your smartphone. Boop. Right.
I mean,
so,
where do you think all this stuff comes from? Right?
Yeah.
These are entrepreneurs and companies solving problems.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and under capitalism, because they're going to get rewarded for their work, and society benefiting through convenience, which we could talk about that through the lens of Jameson Lott. But
Mom, can I have a payment network?
Yeah.
We have a payment network at home.
Yeah.
Okay. It's called Lightning.
Yeah.
All right. And it's getting better.
Yeah.
So we'll get there.
So if we can do it for dollars and credit cards and debit cards and the Diners Club and all that and checks, yeah, you don't think we could do that for Bitcoin? Of course we can.
Of course we can.
Of course we can. Don't be foolish. All right. Next up from Brock. Will Bitcoin ever be widely used as money? Or will it stay primarily a store of value?
I mean, that's basically the same thing, isn't it?
Pretty much. I mean, pretty much.
And the answer is it will be widely used as money.
Yeah, it's like the what versus the how, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's go.
All right. Then we've got an open thread, one open thread from Jay. Number, what was it? 15J.
Yeah.
Are there promising Bitcoin native solutions that could allow for automated recurring payments?
Yeah. Okay. So we're, both number 13 Brock and number 15J had some questions or some focus on what's called layer 2. Bitcoin is layer 1.
That's the network. That's the Bitcoin network.
That's Bitcoin. On-chain Bitcoin. Bitcoin. I got my Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Nice and easy. And if you never move past layer 1, that's fine, right? You and me and Iron Tigran Petrosian are just going to hang out on layer 1. But layer 2 is going to allow us to build our own systems on top of Bitcoin the way they've built all their systems on top of fiat, right? Now, Jay was talking about, well, how in the world in a subscription-fueled earth are you going to allow for recurring subscriptions so that someone could, for example, pay for their streaming service each month with sats and be able to set it and forget it? Here's the answer. I do not know. And quite frankly, I'm not sure that's what I want.
Yeah. Do you want to set and forget something that slowly drains you of your valuable resources?
For me, Bitcoin, and Chris, one of the most fire statements Chris has ever made on this show is Bitcoin rewards responsibility. Now, this is an ultra challenging trivia for you all. I challenge you to tell me which episode Chris says Bitcoin rewards responsibility. Put the episode number and the guest's name in the comments, and I will do a big YouTube short for you because that is a really tough challenge. But you said Bitcoin rewards responsibility. And with Bitcoin, I do feel ownership over my stack of sats. And if I'm going to transact with that sucker, I want to be in charge of that. I'm okay to set up a recurring buy where my fiat is taken out of my fiat account and turns it. That's fine. Fiat into Bitcoin, we'll automate that. We'll recur that. That's fine. But if I'm going to spend some sats, I want to be in control of that. And I want that moment each month to be like, do I still want this thing? So probably most people will skew toward the convenience of a subscription, and somebody will figure out how that works. But for me, I don't know what that answer is, and I'm okay.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see this playing out is like you can establish or set up like a pool of sats, like the Lightning network, where you might be able to load in a year's worth of monthly payments.
Yeah.
And it pulls from that pool.
Yep.
You're still not spending all of it up at once, which is valuable because you could cancel and pull it back. But you're not going through the process of saying yes every single month because you decided for a year that you were okay with the subscription service. So anyway, we'll see. We don't know. We don't know. There, we don't have a crystal ball on that one. Okay. Next up, we've got Miles. Miles mentioned he's moving to Mexico, but you never dug into why he's leaving the U.S. despite America celebrating financial success.
Whoa, chaps.
Is this a hallucination or what?
What? Yo, Chappie's talking about America celebrating. What financial success do we have to celebrate? Huh?
I don't know.
But,
I don't know.
But, despite whatever that is right there, he did talk about building this private recording studio in Mexico. I think the largest private recording studio in Central America on a 1-acre compound. And I think he kind of briefly mentioned that he felt like he wasn't moving for political reasons. I think he was moving for economic reasons. Kind of like Blockchain Wayne. He was like, this is kind of a house of cards, and I'm not going to be here when it tumbles down. But I did tell him when he comes back on in 9 months that we should dig into really what's going on there. So Chappie's right. We did leave that open, but we know it's open. And when he comes back on, not only are we going to have some real crisp audio, we're going to dive into that.
Okay. Fair. All right, last one here. Miles mentioned interacting with cypherpunks and Julian Assange, but didn't share specifics on who he engaged with beyond a general connection to the movement. Wouldn't you like to know, Chappie?
And I pressed him on that. I'm like, name some specific people, and he wouldn't do it. I mean, a cypherpunk doesn't wish to be known. Right? And he actually even said on his episode, I don't really do this often, but I decided to come out of the shadows for your podcast. And then he's going right back into the shadows, which I love.
Well, so that brings us to the end of this rehash on episodes 13, 15, and 16, Brock, Jay, and Miles. Before we wrap up, subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube.
Even if you listen on Spotify, just pop over real quick, hit the subscribe, come back.
When we get to 1,000 subscribers, we'll give away 1 million sats, and we'll start a live show Friday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we can't wait to be there with you. You want to take us out?
All right. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you go back to some of these episodes if you liked what they were about. So Sat Chats Rehash is for educational purposes only and should not be construed as financial advice. See you on the next one, Satillionaire.